What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
My name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive, and we are in our third week into this new year.
We are.
And Dave, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're still going through these Epiphany texts, and today we are looking at the wedding where Jesus turned water into wine.
What a fun day.
Fun day.
That must have been quite a fun surprise for all those people.
It was something. Definitely, yeah.
And was this was his first public miracle, right?
Right, it is.
Yeah.
In John's Gospel, so I'll get into that in a second, but in John's Gospel, there's 7 signs. This was the first of the signs. So we'll talk about why that's important after
Right
we
now.
get started. Right after,
Let's do it.
Right after this. Yeah.
Well, Dave, here we are, just about ready to jump into this podcast. Did you have a good weekend so far?
Yeah. We had a real good weekend.
Good.
And nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But we got together with Anna and the grandbaby and played with her some yesterday afternoon and came back, had a nice dinner, watched a little TV. Just very relaxing. Very relaxing. How about you?
Same with us.
Yeah.
We probably had the most relaxing weekend we've had in a long time. So
No soccer tournaments?
No, well, volleyball. We do volleyball.
Okay.
But no volleyball tournaments this weekend. So it was nice to just truly veg.
It was cold. It was cold.
It was cold. So there wasn't much reason to go outside. So we literally didn't. I think we stayed in our gyms until probably about 1 or 2 o'clock.
I love those declaring a pajama day.
That's kind of what it was. So.
Yeah, we're recording this on Sunday, which is a little out of the ordinary for us. And so we're still basking in the glow of the weekend.
Yeah.
And a good worship service this morning.
Good worship service.
You just came from youth.
Yep.
And so is that good?
The youth was great. Yeah, we I don't know exactly the number we had in there, maybe 15, 16 kids, but it's actually funny because we actually kind of talked about similar things and we prepared independently.
It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah.
I hear that from people in their Sunday school classes. Did you know we were teaching in Sunday school? That someone went right with it. I don't know. I think it's something about the human mind to make those kind of things come together.
Times.
But yeah, it was. And today was a good day in worship. We've got a good start to the year. We had several families visiting this morning. So if they've stumbled on this podcast, I hope you had a good experience here at Hickory Flat. I saw several of them after the service and listening too. So good things, all good things.
Good things.
And so let's get into the sermon a little bit. We, as I think I mentioned in the last week's podcast, I am preaching through these Epiphany texts. I haven't done that in several years. I've had some other kind of series to start with January. So it's kind of been interesting for me to kind of revisit these, starting with the wise men and the magi, and the gifts the first week, and then last week was the baptism of Jesus. And this week, we get to one that's always a traditional Epiphany text, and that is Jesus' first sign in John, changing the water to wine. And actually, I want to go back. I've got my slides that I used this morning, and read at least a little bit of the text, because I want to unpack that a little bit. So there's this, the scene. There's the wedding at Cana of Galilee. Apparently it's a big wedding. A lot of people have been invited because it says Jesus and his disciples. It's kind of fun to think of Jesus like showing up with these 12 people, but it says
rolling with his posse in.
Yeah, but clearly it says they were invited too. And so Cana is not too far from the area where they lived.
Right.
And so, I don't know if it's family or friends, but it's a big event, and they get there and they are giving out of wine early. And so we'll get into why that was important. But it says, when the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." Jesus replied, "Woman, why do you involve me?" And Jesus replied, "My hour has not come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." And from there, there's the 6 big stone jars that Jesus turns the water from wine. And so I did take a little time to unpack that because maybe in the way that we speak to one another, if you had come to your mother if you're even today, if your mother had said, "Woman, why are you involving me?"
Yeah,
How would that?
probably been met with a switch or two.
Yeah, my mother would not have liked that. But what I wanted to point out that John and all the Gospels, the study that's been done with them, you see kind of the literary style that they're using. And so John's gospel does some very specific things. One is, and the text will end that this was the first of the signs. There are 7 signs, 7 times when it does that, where Jesus is being revealed, slowly being revealed as the Messiah, as the Savior of the world throughout the Gospel of John. There is also something I think that sort of bookend with the fact that they're essentially using foot washing water to change into wine. And Jesus in John's gospel only is the washing of the disciples' feet. That comes up again. But this idea of my hour has not yet come. And that can almost sound like, is Mary pushing Jesus into doing something he's not ready to do? Is she's pulling the mother card and, or manipulating him in any way? But that is also something that echoes through this thing about his hour coming. That comes up, I think, 5 or 6 times, where it says, that Jesus' hour had not yet come. And then later, his hour did come.
Yeah.
And that's referred to. And so we see this sort of unfolding that goes through it. And so that's setting up something the way that she used. That's not Jesus, being pushed into doing something, but it's just the way in which he does it is kind of done in a secretive way. It says the bridegroom and the toastmaster or master ceremonies, whoever it was who tasted the wine, didn't know where it came from. And so Jesus in secret changes the water to wine because his time has not come yet. So that's kind of setting up that. But there's a lot of things I think that we can pull from it. And first of all, just why was this a crisis? Why is Mary even bothering? And that is that hospitality is so key in that area. And that's come up in sermons before because we're, always talking in the context of that first century Israel kind of time frame in the whole Middle East. Hospitality was sacred.
Yeah.
And the parties around a wedding went on for 2 or 3 days. So giving out of wine, that was a real crisis, not just in the fact that, are they going to have enough food and wine for everybody, but just what that would have meant for that family in, it not fulfilling
right. So it's not about having enough just so that there's this like massive kegger party everybody has enough. It's
exactly.
It's about helping people feel like they're a part of it and that they were planned for, and like it's just it means a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't a 3-day kegger that they'd give. It was a sacred duty to extend hospitality to your guest, and suddenly they're not. Mary is empathetic. She sees this and brings this to Jesus, not in a way to manipulate him, just so that he does that. Jesus doesn't scold them. Mary is not doing it in a way to embarrass them.
Right.
But there's something I think that we can glean for, and that was part of my points was that Mary says to the servants, do whatever he says. And, she just is quietly bringing the need to Jesus and trusting him.
Yeah.
And Jesus then responds, essentially saying, it's not in the text, but essentially you could read it in there. What do you have?
Yeah.
What do you have? You've got these 6 big stone jars. Okay, I'll work with that.
Yeah.
And lots of times I think with us, like, what do we bring to Jesus? We need to bring what we have. Okay, so he has 6 big stone jars that they're filling probably with foot washing water. And he uses that very ordinary things to do this extraordinary things. And that is, I think, a deep message for us. We bring Jesus what we have, not after we got cleaned up, not something brand new, not something, but just the ordinary. And Jesus turns it into the extraordinary.
Yeah. And that's such a beautiful message. I mean, really to kind of even start, it's not the exact start of his ministry, but it's one of the like first times that you see him doing something outside of himself for the betterment of the other people around, and to make it, to put it in that context is very powerful.
Yeah, and you know, this first sign, being at a wedding and being an epiphany text, there's something there that Jesus meets us in. That it's not, the first sign is not him casting demons out of somebody, or you know, or some other healing the blind. It is keeping the party going at a wedding. And there's something joyful about that. Jesus meets us in that community in this time of celebration and keeps it going.
Yeah.
And I think that's for us too. But, you know, this giving out of wine was, you know, would have been for a crisis. And so I kind of pulled it back into, we give out of stuff too.
Yeah.
And, you know, I started off with some funny stuff about giving out of ibuprofen or peanut butter, or, you know, something a little bit more serious. Like, have you ever been on a road trip and just about given out of gas or given out of gas? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's terrifying, especially now that the gauges tell you exactly how many miles you have.
Yeah.
Because I don't know whether it happens or not, but it always feels like that last 20 miles goes infinitely faster than the other 380 that you had in the tank. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and you know, I have given out of gas before. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But I have been very low in gas. I've had the exact experience I put in the sermon bumper.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I've just about been out of gas and finally found an exit. I've been on a road trip somewhere, not paying attention, talking in the car, and you get low and go, oh my gosh, we got to stop for gas. And you're like on, you know, I-16 between, Statesboro and Savannah, and there's not many exits.
Right.
Then you finally find an exit and you turn off and you finally get to some pump in some little station and it says no gas.
Yeah.
And it is terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to kill you, but it is, you know.
Well, in those situations, you're also like, well, how far is the next one away? Well,
Right.
you know, there's just so many questions, but
Yeah.
I've never run out of gas, but I've definitely had that most like where the engine's puttering up to the gas tank.
Exactly. So yeah. But what I really wanted to shift the focus to was other things that we give out of. Mm-hmm. You know, those tangible things like ibuprofen and peanut butter, but we give out of patience.
Yeah.
We give out of hope. We give out of energy, or just, you know, will to have new ideas, whatever. We all find ourselves empty at times. And it can be kind of a crisis. It can be a crisis of faith. It could be just a crisis of humanity or family or whatever crisis you want to say. We have run out, and it's not because we plan to.
Yeah.
It's not because we're being careless. It's not because we're bad people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because we're human beings. And so, you know, I have found myself oftentimes when I run out of patience these days, and snap, and lots of times it surprises me. I didn't plan to do it. It just like all of a sudden that was my last nerve.
Yeah.
You've had that kind of thing happen to you?
Yeah. And honestly, most of the time I find, and this is actually what we kind of talked about in youth group, is I find that when I get to those spots where my patient runs extra thin or whatever, to where like to a point where I actually react to it, because I think you would say I'm a pretty patient person.
Super patient.
And like when I finally get to that spot where it clicks, it's mostly because I've been pouring out so much other places and I'm not refilling myself. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's kind of the same thing as like this empty gas tank is like when I find myself when I'm getting to those empty spaces, like that's the time when the worst is going to come out.
And you know, I think that self-awareness of like my tank is running empty, you know, to pull ourselves back in a way. But lots of times we find ourselves in there. And so what do we do?
Yeah.
And so I think something that we can use this story from John as an illustration is that, you know, we bring what we have to Jesus. We bring those 6 empty jars or whatever we have to Jesus and say, you know, look, and sometimes I think we can in the church have this thing that's like, well, I don't know if that's good enough. I don't know. We've got to get it all cleaned up. We've got to get at least partially filled before we present it to Jesus. And Jesus is saying, just bring what you have, you know? And I think sometimes we're waiting for Jesus to send us something new energy, new courage, new money, new clarity. And Jesus is saying to us, let's work with what you already have.
Yeah.
You know, let's see what we can learn about this experience and how we got here, and then we'll make something new. And so just bring your story, your grief, your discouragement, bring what you have, and I'll fill it.
Yeah.
But we have to bring what we have. We have to bring those jars to start with.
And that's such a major component of our faith. And I think a lot of times, sometimes we grow up in church and we just come to church and we say, okay, I've got my faith. You know, this is my faith. But it almost always starts with a true, let me bring what I have to you. Let me hand over the things that I feel like I'm handling and pass it off. Because like when we are willing to finally hand stuff over to God, that's when miracles happen. That's when the big things go.
So let's talk just for a second of why is this traditionally an Epiphany text? I mean, you know, the Epiphany text we've had, the Magi in the East looking at the stars, seeing something happen, taking the journey, worshiping the Christ child. We have Jesus being baptized, not for repentance of sins, but for identity in Christ. And we have the words, you know, this is my beloved Son with whom I will please. Why is this an Epiphany text? What's going on? This is a wedding, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
This is Jesus turning water into wine. What is going on here? And there is part of this text where, you know, it says this is the first of the signs, and his disciples believed in him, because that's the very end of the text. So what this is about identity.
Yeah.
This is about people, you know, one of the words, that, like if we were making a short definition of the word epiphany, it'd be kind of like an aha moment, right? We have this aha moment, and we call that an epiphany. And so when we have these understandings of who Jesus is, that's an epiphany. And so here, for the readers and for the disciples, we're having those aha moments. This is who Jesus is. And it's, you know, it's up to us, I think, to kind of dig into the text and say, well, what does that say about how we live our lives? And we've already mentioned, you know, that Jesus meets us in the ordinary. He meets us, he keeps the party going in a celebration. It's not necessarily this big sign, and they'll come later, where Jesus is healing the lepers, and when Jesus is, you know, preaching on the mountain. Those kinds of things are a different kind of revealing. But here, Jesus being, you know, revealed to his disciples and to us as we read, and, you know, what comes from that. So I'm going to, and then I had 3 takeaways, and we'll close with that today, because I think we've had church and Sunday school and ready for lunch.
Yeah.
But I'll give you the three takeaways that I would like for us to take from this. One is that running out is not failure. It's human. You run out because you're human. And we don't need to be ashamed about that. Yep. We just will. And Jesus will meet us there. The second is that Jesus uses what we bring.
Right.
We got to bring it to him, though. But even if it feels small, even if it feels empty, even if it feels like, man, I got nothing, you know, even in that is we're coming with our open hands, you know, to receive. And so, you know, we got to bring our jars, even if they're empty, and then Jesus can fill them. And then finally, it's that this is done in secret. God works quietly. And I haven't in the podcast talked much about that, but, you know, so much of what Jesus does in our life is kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking for the big fireworks kind of thing, you know, the big high, spiritual high kind of thing. And a lot of times what God is developing in us is we get down the road and go like, wow, I'm not as angry as I once was. I was really angry at this person. And, you know, I think I kind of forgive them, you know, or, you know, I have not had a lot of faith lately. You know, I've had all these doubts, but suddenly my faith seems like it's it's more renewed. I'm more optimistic, and so then. And only then we realize, like, wait, that was Jesus. That was Jesus quietly at work restoring these things. And so we need to not miss the miracle because it wasn't loud, because it wasn't dramatic. We need to look for grace in the ordinary, because that is so often how Jesus works in us, is through the ordinary.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to kind of leave us with, because it kind of gives us a space to reflect, or what are maybe some of the spaces that feel ordinary in our lives that we've actually can look back and go, oh, wow, God's actually working in this as well, you know? Because I think that creates the practical sense of what faith can be about, but also it shows that God is working in the small things, and it's in those small things that eventually create the big things that he works in. It's like a building blocks process and stuff like that.
Amen.
So
It doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen. I won't say it won't ever, but it doesn't happen instantaneously.
For sure.
It's usually slowly and quietly.
Yeah.
And, and then we're able to look back and just see the journey and how far that God has brought us.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, as good Methodists, we believe in that prevenient grace. So
Yeah.
even where it feels like somebody's just had this epiphany moment, this aha, and it feels like they shifted everything in 24 hours, there was actually still a lot of things leading up to that spot where he had that epiphany.
Yeah.
Or she or whatever.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's all I got.
That's all you got?
Yeah.
Well,
that was this morning. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much again for just tuning in and rocking with us and listening to us talk through the scripture. And as always, we would remind you that this is kind of a build off of what the sermon was on Sunday morning. So if you didn't have a chance to watch it, go back and watch worship from Sunday. The music was great. The community was great, and the message was also great. So it's good to kind of catch it on all sides and kind of reflect and think, and then come join us with what your thoughts are on the things that we've talked about as well. So if you do have any thoughts and you'd like to share it with us, there's a comment section below on the Facebook, the YouTube, wherever you are taking this in from, and we'd love to hear what you're thinking about all this as well. And Dave, anything here at the end?
No, I just hope everybody has a great week. Next week's going to be a special worship service. We're going to be celebrating something very special, and that is 30 years of Stephen ministry here at Hickory.
Ooh.
Almost as long as we've been in this building, there's been Stephen ministry, and they've had quite an impact on a lot of lives during that time. So we'll be celebrating that next week. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we have a special podcast with the.
Yeah, we will. Barbara, we're going to have a special. The associate pastor at the time of that starting is going to be back with she was the one who was very instrumental in starting it. Barbara Hatchell is going to be back to preach for us, and she and I will be doing the podcast next week.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So that'll be something fun, new, and exciting to check out. And as always, guys, we just thank you and thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.
God bless everybody.